Hey everybody, it's Tamara from Moogly, and I'm coming to you today live. It is June 24th, 2020. And as I get started here, I am messing around with my laptop a little bit so I can bring up our video. I can see that it is now live. Oops. Oh my goodness. I'm having trouble getting it to show up for me here so that I can read your comments. There we go. Okay, now I've up. I can see the chat. So if you are watching, please do give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know that it is working. So hi, Belia. Thank you so much for tuning in again. I was just on Facebook, and if you go to the link in the description, you can see the Facebook video there. It is now embedded, as well as all the other links to the things I talk about in that video. We've got lots of fun things happening almost every day on Moogly during the week. So definitely check that out. There's lots of giveaways going. There's some new patterns happening. And I want to point out what's happened on the YouTube channel here now that we're on YouTube. There are right and left-handed video tutorials up for the Rainbow Bobble Bag, which you can see right here, which is a really fun pattern made with Peyton's Hemster. There are right and left-handed video tutorials now up for the Easy Striped Summer Tee, which, right here we go. There we are. This one is made in Peyton's Grace and goes from extra small to 5X, so do check that out. Easy to adjust to and make longer if the cropped length isn't your style. I know everybody has very firm opinions on where they like their tops to go. As it should be, and part of the fun of crochet, of course, is that you can totally customize it. So those are the video tutorials that have gone up recently. Oh, and also the left-handed version of the diagonal stripes and texture pillow right here. The right-handed version is on Yarnspirations, along with the written pattern and the free pattern download. The left-handed version of the video is on the Moogly YouTube channel, and all of them are linked, again, at the link in the description. So check those out if you haven't already, as well as all the fun giveaways and other things that don't really happen here on YouTube. Like I say, always something fun and new to see and new to try, and sometimes a giveaway to enter. So I hope you'll check it out. So hi, everybody. I can see Kelly, Jane, Teresa, Ches or Che, Cheryl, Crafty Ferret Mama, great name. And thank you so much, Morena and Marley and June and Miriam. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. So as I said, go to the link in the description if you want to see all the Facebook fun. And that's got a link to, all the other stuff that has been happening lately, giveaways and other fun things. But what I wanted to talk to you about today specifically was US versus UK crochet terms. I had hoped to be doing a craft room tour today, but that's going to have to get put off just a little bit longer. I was out of town yesterday and dealing with some family stuff. My son was in the hospital for a procedure. He's fine. He's off playing the latest Minecraft update now, I think. So he's doing great. So don't worry about that. But so I have lots of catching up to do. So today is US versus UK crochet terms. And if you go to that link in the description, along with all the other stuff, there is a free printable, a free pinnable, a free chart that I made that features the US versus UK crochet terms. So you can go ahead and pin that to your favorite Pinterest board or go ahead and print it out. Couple notes on printing I wanted to make sure to mention. If you try to use Print Friendly, which I normally recommend using on Moogly if you're printing out patterns and things like that, it might cut it off. That's what happened when I tried to print it out, because when I go live, I like to print out the post before I've actually embedded the videos so I can make sure to hit all the points and all the things I've linked to. And when I did that, it split the graphic. I'll show you what I mean. Right there. A little bit of a split in the graphic. So definitely you can use a couple different methods. Like I said, I have made a PDF of it, so you can just go ahead and click on that PDF, print from PDF, or save it, however you like to do it. Pinning it, of course, is an option. Also, I tried it a couple different ways. I think this one was the PDF. It printed really nicely all on one page. This one was right-click, open image, a new tab, and then Control-P. So it depends on your computer, what system you're using. If you're on a computer versus a phone, you might just want to print it, or if you have printing from your phone, which I don't, so I don't know how that works. Point is, it's out there in several different forms. So what is the difference between US and UK crochet terms? Not as much as you'd think. That's one of the fun things. When you try and read patterns in other languages, a lot of times you have to, try and send it through Google Translate and say, oh my gosh, what does that even mean? Crochet terms are kind of like a job lingo. They don't always translate in direct language. like a, like an email might or something like that. So there's relatively, like I say, there's relatively few differences since we are mostly using the same language. And a lot of them just refer to sort of the height of the stitch. And logically, I can see an argument for both ways. So definitely there's not one right, one wrong. It's just the names that have become the common usage in both of those locations. So basically, to go over them with you, slip stitch, we all know what a slip stitch is. In the US, if you're reading a pattern, that's usually abbreviated SLST, like slip stitch. In the UK, it's just SS, slip stitch. Makes sense, right? Very simple to translate there. But then the rest of them, single, half double, double treble, and double treble, and presumably on up as you go. But of course, double treble is the highest most of us will encounter on a, on a semi-regular basis, not even on a regular basis. All of those translate as just kind of one step up. So in the US, what we call single crochet and abbreviate SC, in the UK is called a double crochet. And I just realized there's a mistake on this graphic that I'm going to go back and fix very, very soon. And I apologize for that. So don't print it out yet. I will be fixing that as soon as this is over. I'm actually making a note to myself. Sorry, like I said, yesterday, very busy day. I'm a fallible human being, so please don't print that out until I go back and fix it, but I will be doing that here immediately after this live. So anyway, single crochet is SC in the US and double crochet in the UK. So if you see a pattern and you are looking at the finished project, you can say, those aren't double crochets, those are single crochets. There is a really good chance that that's a UK pattern, and you'll want to check closely. Ravelry, I know, has an option now. You can mark off if it's US or UK terms on the listing. Maybe see where the author's from if you need to. And that's going to be your clue. The other clue is the half double crochet. I love this one because it's such a giveaway. In the US, a half double crochet is HDC. In the UK, they call that a half treble crochet. And I can see that's where my graphic mixed up. My line got split there. So they call that a half treble crochet. So where we see HDC in the US, in the UK, it's HTC or HTR, depending on, the pattern. Often HTR is the most typical. So if you see HTC or HTR, that's your right away clue that this is a UK pattern. So then, since we're moving up, what's in the US is double crochet would be treble crochet. So if you think about it, they start with double crochet, then half treble, then treble, whereas we have single, half double, and double. So it's just that next step up. Same thing for us, a treble, for them would be a double treble. Our double treble is their triple treble. So it just keeps going on up like that. So like I say, look for that half double crochet or HTR. That's your first clue. Look at the, the finished object. If you say, if you can read your crochet stitches, when you're looking at something typically, if that's a single crochet or a double crochet, that's going to be a big clue right there too. The other things to look for in the written pattern are where in the US we say gauge, they may say tension. If you think about it, they kind of mean the same thing in a way. Tension is what gives you your gauge. Your gauge is based on your tension, so that makes sense. So that's another big clue. And then also, if you look at the instructions for the actual written stitches, where we might say yarn over or abbreviate it YO, they will often say yarn over hook, YOH. So one extra word there, but another little clue that can let you know that you're looking at a UK pattern versus a US pattern. So once you keep those in mind, and like I say, once I fix this graphic, go back and print it out or pin it. That will really help you be able to read both. So my recommendation is if you get a UK pattern and you're in the US or vice versa, go ahead and print it out and then go through and just with your pen real quick change, all those SCs to DC or vice versa, whatever you need to do. It is a relatively easy swap. You always want to read through a pattern before you make it anyway. It's good to know what's coming, kind of like a recipe. Nothing like finding out that butter needed to be softened when you're halfway through making the cookies. So just read through the pattern, make your notes, and then you've got a whole nother, group of patterns from a whole nother country that you can make immediately. And then, of course, you can go from there. If you learn how to read crochet symbols, you can start reading the Russian patterns and the Japanese patterns. They tend to use a lot more crochet symbols. Another great resource if you want to translate other patterns, my friend Rhonda, she runs Umbauka Crochet. hope I'm pronouncing it right. I realize I've never said it out loud probably. But she has a ton of charts and things for different languages, a ton of different languages. So she's a really great resource for that. The Craft Yarn Council, of course, has all the standard US ones as well as a quick chart of the US and UK ones as well. But really, these are the ones that you want to look for. The rest are pretty much direct translations. But the height of the stitches themselves is really where it can get a little tricky and a little off. So that's what you want to look for. So let's see. I'm just going to check our comments again here and make sure I haven't missed anything. And let's see. Let's see. I've got a couple questions here. Just scrolling up here. I don't make sure I don't miss any. So Annie asks, can you explain how to design a crochet doily? Oof. It's, I will tell you what, working in rounds, it's pretty much, okay, so if you know the basics of a circle, you think about the size of the stitch. If it's a single crochet, you're probably starting, let's say, with like six stitches makes a really nice tight closed circle in single crochet. If you're using double crochet, which would, of course, in the US be treble crochet, or in the UK rather, it'd be treble crochet, then you are probably starting with, on average, 12 stitches in that first round. I personally like 12. I think it's a really nice starting number for that. For half double crochet or half treble crochet in the UK, you would be starting with somewhere around 9 or 10. That one's a little more flexible. So what you need to think about is increasing by that same number. But as you increase the height of the stitch, say for instance, I did a round of 6 single crochets to begin with, and then the next round was going to be double crochets. Well, normally when you're working in a flat circle, you will double the number of stitches each round. But if that next round is double crochets, those are going to be a lot taller, and that's not going to work. So since the double crochet is about twice the height of a single crochet, then I would only do half as many increases. I know this is a little complicated, but honestly, designing doilies can get really complicated. But the numbers, you just kind of want to think about the height of the stitch, whether it's the same height as 2 of those other rounds that you're working into, or if it's the same height as the round you're working into, and take that into account. I will say I think there's probably a tremendous amount of trial and error. I know that every time I make a big round blanket, which is of course just basically a big doily made in bigger yarn, that is definitely one of the harder parts, is just figuring out where those multiples will be so that it can keep increasing without getting really rippled and ruffly. And sometimes that means it's a mistake or an error or something happened rows and rows back. So I have a lot of admiration for those who design doilies. Grace Fearon is an amazing doily designer. Her work is so beautiful. I've seen it in person at the Crochet Guild of America conferences in the past, and it's absolutely stunning and gorgeous. So if you love doilies, I would definitely say look her up. Whatever she's doing is absolutely phenomenal. I will say with doilies, one of the keys to really getting them to lay flat and beautifully after you've made them is, of course, blocking. Blocking something like a blanket, optional. Might make it look better, might not. Not every blanket pattern needs to be blocked. Same things for, hats or scarves. But with a doily, especially with that thread, you really, really want to take the time to block it out. And that can really open up that lace and really make it shine in a really gorgeous way. I actually had a question earlier today that I found on the blog. I don't know if it was written yesterday or today, but they were asking about stiffening things. And a lot of doilies get stiffened as well. There are a couple options for that. And I like to do the stiffening at the same time I do the blocking because, why do it twice? So after I've got it blocked out, whether that's with pins or just laying it out, you can spray it with a bit of spray starch. That's a little bit riskier, but it's also very quick and easy and relatively easy cleanup. If you do use spray starch, I like to do it from the underneath. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Otherwise, there are, of course, starch products on the market, or you can use your white school glue. And there are different recipes out there. Some people like to use half as much school glue to water. Some people like to use 3 times as much water as they use the white school glue. Whatever proportion, feels good to you for your project, how stiff you want it. Stiffer you want it, the more glue. And you can dip it in that and sort of gently press it out and then block it and let it dry. and that will help a lot too. And that one's really nice. I like the school glue because it is washable out. If you made a mistake in blocking or something, just get it wet and block it again, and you should be all set. So those are my tips for doilies. Like I said, it is complicated, honestly. I think designing in the round when you're not just making, simple rounds of double crochet or single crochet can be very complicated. And I have a lot of admiration for those who do all those doily patterns. They're absolutely stunning. So Morina, Yarnin and Darnin asks, will you also have needle and hook size translation? Well, I'll tell you what, I might. That's not a bad idea. I'll take a note. Needle and hook. But here's the thing. The U.S., as far as I know, is the only one who uses the letters. Probably why it's USI or USH or USJ or whatever. Pretty much everybody else, and this is probably a statement on how we measure everything here in the U.S., everybody else uses millimeters. The fun thing about that is in some countries like Japan, their millimeters make a little bit more sense. They'll just go on up. 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 6, 6.5 millimeters, on through, etc. You know how to count. And here in the U.S., then we've got some wonky ones. We've got 3.75, which I think is, this is off the top of my head, I think that's an E. Sometimes an F is 4.25. We don't even have a letter for a 7 millimeter hook. We've got to throw in G and G plus in there to make those make sense. It can be a real mess. So in general, I highly recommend going by the millimeter. I know in my patterns, I always try and list both. I say try simply because, who knows what I was doing back in 2011. I'd have to go back and look. I hope I did. But the best option is always to go by the millimeter. Millimeter is universal. So that's my little rant on that, I guess. I really feel like the letters confuse things, honestly. And if you have a hook that only has the letter on it, and I've had that too. I inherited some of my first hooks from my husband's grandmother, and some of those older hooks only have the letter. So in that case, the best option, and I'm looking around to see if I have one here, and I don't, your best option is to get a hook and needle gauge. If you're getting a gauge for knitting, then they probably have just the circles that you can stick your needle through and see basically what size it fit. It's kind of like the old peg game when we were kids. Stick it in each of the holes until it gets, until it won't go through because the hook is too big. Or depending on which direction you're going through, until it fits in. For the hook gauges, I want to point out crochet gauges are different. You don't want the kind that's a hole that you poke the crochet hook through. You want the kind that they're usually a plastic or wooden square or rectangle, and it's got U shapes along the edge, and you can dip your crochet hook into that to see what the right size is, because crochet hooks can be so varied. You want to measure, here, I'll go ahead and pull up a furls that I've got sitting right here. You really want to measure right along the straightest part of the shaft. You dip that into that hole in the gauge to see what size it is, because down here, depending on the manufacturer, the hook portion might be bigger, it might be a lot smaller. You really want to come in here to where that straightest part of the hook is. This is where, when you're crocheting, hopefully you are sending your hook all the way through that loop, because that determines the size of the loop that you're crocheting with. So that will help you get gauge. If you're having trouble with gauge, make sure you're pushing that hook all the way through so that the loop you're crocheting gets that size, not just this little size down here at the end. Excuse me. But yeah, so go ahead, and if you've got unlabeled hooks, I would recommend a hook or needle gauge, because especially as you go back in time and, manufacturing was even less standardized, it might be labeled one thing and today would be considered something else entirely. So for hooks and needles, I really strongly recommend getting a gauge. There's tons of different ones out there. There's fun little wooden ones like Katrinkles. I know they make some really fun wooden ones. And then of course, Clover has them, and lots of manufacturers have hook and needle gauges out there, so you can definitely pick your favorite. I've got a couple different ones that I usually have on me, but just not over here at the desk today. So let's see. Oh, my laptop is about to die. I am running out of battery. So thank you so much, Claudia and Jai and Teresa and Good Knit Kisses. Thank you for tuning in. Oh gosh, yeah, it is a problem in Australia. In Australia, yeah, you're going to probably end up with a really good mix of both, for sure. So I am glad. Hopefully you'll find that helpful. And again, I apologize that right now the graphic is wrong. I will be changing it immediately after I get off here. So yeah, Femina, we use millimeter in the UK. It's the way to go. I think all hooks should be labeled with millimeter, but so far nobody's asked me, so here we are. Uh, oh, Marina, sorry about mispronouncing your name. I apologize. Always a bit of a guess on names. So anyway, that's, yeah, like I said, US to UK is probably, or UK to US is probably the easiest one to translate. Just print it out first, go through one by one. I don't recommend doing a find and replace on your computer, because then all of a sudden you'll have all these double crochets and you don't know if it means single crochet or really double crochet. So doing it by hand with a pen and paper, honestly, and maybe that's just me because I'm older, but I find it a lot easier than trying to do a find and replace on your computer. So yes, thank you so much, guys. Hopefully this will help you. If you're in the UK, read US patterns better. If you're in the US, read UK patterns better. And if you are in the UK or you read UK terms and you're having trouble getting a Moogly pattern sorted for yourself, always, again, feel free to drop me a line, and I'm always here to help. So I'm just going to go ahead and go so I can get this graphic corrected so you guys can print it out and pin it. So that should be, give me another 10-15 minutes here and that'll be up on the blog. Otherwise, in the meantime, on the blog, please check out all the other links. We've got lots of great patterns, giveaways, more tutorials here on YouTube. And tomorrow will be a brand new Moogly crochet along square, so you can check that out as well. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a great day, everybody.